Great. All right, so this is my presentation on my action research project, using technology as a tool for student inquiry, learning, motivation, and engagement. I thought that this cartoon summed up technology in general, the battle we all face. And I hated technology at first. I didn't want to use it in the classroom. I didn't want to take the time to learn it, I'll be honest. But once I did, and once I really sat down to work on incorporating it in the classroom, I found out that I really, really enjoyed it. And I think that it can definitely add value in the classroom. So this is a little experiment that I tried with my students about technology, using technology in the classroom. So I used Google Earth, and my research question was, does Google Earth increase student motivation and interest in the classroom, in particular when learning about Civil War battles? I remember when I learned about the Civil War in middle school and in college, I hated the military aspect of it. I could never visualize it, I could never just make sense of it. The flanks, all that jazz just like confused me a lot. So I was like, how am I going to teach this to 6th graders where they'll get it? Because I wanted to give them the extra information because some of the students were really, really into the Civil War. So I didn't want to shortchange the battles aspect of it just because I wasn't well versed in it. So I was like, oh, I'll use a Google Earth tour. So what I did was create a tour of the battles across, I just used the major battles because it took a while to get through because it was a lot of information. So I talked about Antietam, Shiloh, Gettysburg, the first and second battles of Manassas, the siege of Vicksburg, and the Battle of Chancellorsville, I believe. Some of those are on that as well, some of them are not. So again, I taught a 6th grade social studies and language arts classes. I taught mainly the Civil War unit throughout my student teaching experience. Some of the students were of higher ability, some were of lower ability, most were in the middle. Most knew what Google Earth was. They had either seen it in the classroom or in the computer labs or at home. The access to this technology in the school was good compared to a lot of schools. We had access to iPads and iPods, we had a smart board in every classroom, and we had access to computer labs. However, the Wi-Fi was not very good, so the iPads didn't really work if you wanted to use the internet. And the computer labs, oftentimes we were not allowed to use because of math benchmarks. So we didn't have access all the time to computer labs. Sometimes we didn't even have access to the internet. So that made it a little bit challenging. The day that I did this is why technology is a never-ending battle. The day that I did my Google Earth, I walked into the classroom and my cooperating teacher's computer would not turn on at all. It was blank, it wouldn't turn on. So I went and checked out a laptop from the library that had Google Earth on it and used it that way. And I did have a backup plan of a presentation in PowerPoint that would have covered everything but wouldn't have been nearly as cool. So for the theoretical framework, I hit on constructivism and how people learn. I definitely activated their prior knowledge. I started these lessons with military vocab because that's really important in understanding the military aspects of battles. So I had them write down what they thought the vocab meant, such as flank, casualty, cavalry, like all of those things. A lot of the guys were all over it, a lot of the male students, because they play Call of Duty. So a lot of them were really into it and like super pumped to do the rest of the lesson because of that. And because I told them that I too played video games, and that made them really excited. So, and the girls were into it too. Some of them played video games, and they were into figuring out what meant what. So then they took notes on the lecture that I did using Google Earth, and then they completed a left side assignment for their interactive notebooks where they created an invitation to the first Battle of Manassas. I told them that people used picnic baskets and went and watched the first battle, so I wanted them to create an invitation, like they were inviting a friend or a family member to attend that battle. And what I was looking at doing was how to make them not bored and how to use technology to interest them in the classroom. So that's what I was working on with this. The data that I used were my field notes, my cooperating teacher's notes, and a survey that I gave the students. My notes definitely showed that they were more interested when using Google Earth, mainly because of their participation. A lot of the students were very actively involved in this lesson and very engaged in it. even though they had to take notes, and even though it was about something kind of dry like the battles, they were involved in it and they were active. I didn't have to use the note cards that I used with all the students' names. I had enough people volunteer and enough different people volunteer, and a mix between boys and girls, that I didn't have to use those. My cooperating teacher also said that their interest had definitely peaked, or was piqued by this activity. She said that because of the bell ringers that I used, the entrance slip that I used, asking them what they had learned from the previous week, and then the vocabulary, got their brain kind of on the right track and rolling, and so they were involved in the lesson. The survey also supported that. They were more interested. No one, probably 2 people out of all 46 students put 3s or lower on any of the survey. So the ones that I was particularly looking at was, I felt that Google Earth increased my interest in military battles, and the information and images used during the Google Earth lesson helped me understand and picture the Civil War battles better. So most students put 4s and 5s for both of those, so that was a good indication that they were interested in the material. Again, definitely more so in 6th period than in 8th period, and I don't know why that is, no telling. One was a Thursday afternoon, last period of the day, that's 8th period, so it could have had something to do with that, or just the diversity in learners. For my future work, I would like to have better Wi-Fi access so that I could have them each have a computer or go to the computer lab to do this on their own, or to create their own Google Earth tour about the battles, and get them more involved hands-on with the technology than me just doing it at the smartboard. I also would probably do a KWL to judge their learning from the beginning to the end to see what they already knew, and a map activity where they would label the places, the battles, on the map. So those are the things that I probably would have done differently in the future. And now I will show you a Jing video that I created on my feelings of technology. This cartoon says, "I won't be impressed by technology in the classroom until you figure out how to install Google directly in my brain." And I feel like that's in a way true, that students are engaged in it, but teachers have to constantly be keeping up with the new technologies that are rising and take that time to really learn the technologies, which is so easy now because of YouTube videos. You can go on and figure out how to do anything. And so I think that if teachers take that time to do it, that the interest and motivation in their students will increase in the classroom. So here's my video. Maybe.
Hi everyone, I'm going to use this Jing to describe my feelings on digital technologies in the classroom. First, this image that is on the screen right now is a cartoon that I think sums up how technology is viewed a little bit in the classroom by students and by teachers. So it says there aren't any icons to click, it's a chalkboard. So the students don't even really know what chalkboards are anymore, and I think that sometimes students expect there to be technology in the room, and a lot of times the teachers don't really know how to use technology. It can be intimidating and new to learn. But I think that technology definitely has its place in the classroom. Technology is growing really fast and it will continue to grow. And I think it's important for teachers to seek out new technologies, find out how to use them, and to make their lessons more effective. I definitely believe that technology, if used in the classroom, needs to have a purpose, that it needs to engage the students, create more interaction, but not just be added for the sake of adding technology. First, what I used in the classroom throughout the semester, I used Google Earth, which is right here. I used it to explain these Civil War battles. So I inputted all this information and marked it on Google Earth of the major Civil War battles. So as you can tell, here's the first Battle of Manassas. So you can zoom into the battlefield information, the actual park information, which is right here, or you can click on the information that I used. I gave a brief summary of the battle, who won, just details that they needed to know, the students needed to know. Then I included images. This is a painting. I included a photograph and maps. So you can input all of that into Google Earth, and I wrote my action research paper on this, and it really increased students' interaction in the classroom. They were really excited to learn. Their interest was increased through Google Earth, and I would definitely plan on using it in the future. I will also talk today about some more of the technologies that I plan on using or have used. I've used Wordle a lot, which is right here. And here's an example of how I use Wordle in the classroom as a just do it in a Smartboard presentation, which I also became familiar with Smartboard. I Wordled the the South Carolina secession, their document declaring secession, and I had the students tell me why the largest words were large, what they meant, and what this document meant, what it was about. This is great for condensing large documents that you don't really have time to spend on for students to look at. And I plan on definitely using that in the future. They also have Wordles that have already been completed that you can borrow from other people. I was also required to become familiar with WordPress, which is a blogging tool that I used throughout my student teaching experience. So I created blogs and written blogs. I use Library of Congress website a lot. Their digital collections has a lot of images that you can use. It even has lesson plans and resources, primary sources for you to use in the classroom. It has historic newspapers, images. You can search through all of these topics for any type of history that you need. And I also plan on using SpiderScribe more in the classroom. This is a mind mapping tool, and it's free. So you can show kids how to use concept maps to study, how to create their own concept maps. It makes it exciting because you have the technology involved. They can do this at home. But it also teaches them an important study skill. So this is an example of a SpiderScribe concept map. So I plan on using these tools and a lot more in the future, and I definitely believe that technology has a place in the classroom, especially in the social studies classroom, because there are so many things that you can do to utilize it to your advantage and to make your lessons and content more interesting to students.
All right.